Are you out of your Vulcan minds? How are you guys? It's really great to be here, and I haven't actually been to Christchurch in a very long time, and it's wonderful to be back. And I just want to commend you guys on your spirit and your resilience and your bravery, and my heart goes out to all of you and your loved ones, and it's just remarkable. And going through the city, I was really kind of moved in quite an unexpected way. It just the sort of the devastation that I saw, and this is, you know, a couple of years on, and it seems to me it's almost like it feels to me like that, you know, the rest of the country, maybe on some level or another, it's out of sight, out of mind, has kind of forgotten about it. But seeing what you guys actually dealing with on a day-to-day basis is quite a shock to me. You know, I'm sure going to be doing some media about that, because you know, my hat goes off to you guys for what you've had to put up with for the last few years. So my heart and hat goes out to you guys. Yeah, here's to you. All right, let's get this show on the road. Who's got some questions?
Question. What's your hand? Question. Have to be the furthest away, didn't you?
While you were on the set, did you guys play any practical pranks or jokes?
I love practical pranks and jokes. Yeah, there were a few. Well, I mean, there's quite some famous ones that went down on Star Trek. When I was working on Almost Human, I had this driver. Thank you. I had this great driver who kept on trying to prank me, and he would just like come up with epic fail after epic fail. Like, I'd be walking back to my trailer and he'd be underneath my trailer wearing a gorilla's costume and trying to scare me, but then having difficulty getting out. And I'm like, what are you doing? But he got more elaborate. I would come at the end of the day, I would come to my car and put my hand on the handlebar to open it, and there'd be honey on the handlebar. And what else would you do? Oh, I'd come, it was like snowing outside, we were shooting in Vancouver. I would come back after a 17-hour day of on set, go to try and find my pants, and they'd be in the freezer. So I got them back a few times. I got peanut butter, and I put it in the groove of his windshield wiper, and like it didn't rain for weeks, which was pretty vexing. And then all of a sudden it rained, and he came back to work, and he was spewing because he was out in the middle of the road and it started raining. He flicked the window wipers on, and suddenly his window was smeared with peanut butter, and it's oil, and it doesn't come off, and he couldn't see out of the car. I thought that was hilarious. Oh yeah, and there's another one I got him where at the end of the shoot, he was driving me to work one day, and my rental car was back at my apartment, and I said, oh yeah, I've got to return that rental car sometime. And I knew that he'd want to do it because it'd give him something to do and get out of sitting around at set. And he goes, oh, I'll do that for you, mate. I mean, you sure? He goes, yeah, I'll do it for you. So what I did was I ran the tank of that car down to empty. And I waited for another rainy day. And I said, oh, could you return the car today? I think today's the day. And he goes, sure, no problem. So he goes and picks up the car, and he just gets it to the top of the car park and out onto the street, and it's bucketing in rain, and he runs out of gas. So he has to get out, and it's soaked, and he has to go and find a petrol station. So that was a particularly good one. But let me say, don't feel sorry for this guy, because let me tell you a story about him. I turned up at set one day to go to work. I was driving, and there was a traffic cone in my parking spot, and just as I'm pulling in, one of the wardrobe girls comes out and goes, oh, I'll get that for you, Carl. And she goes and she picks up the traffic cone, and I see her go like this. He'd put honey or some gunk all over it, and she's like, and then like it gets worse. I had noticed that there's a van sort of parked where it's not normally parked with tinted windows. He was inside filming it. he was expecting me to get out of my car and then like do that. And did he stop the prank because I wasn't gonna the target wasn't gonna get hit? No, he filmed her doing it. And then he came into my trailer and laughed about it. So practical jokes I do like, I enjoy.
Hi, I was just wondering if you had a favourite Damn It Jim or anything that you would want to put into it.
I like Damn It Jim, I'm a bricklayer, not a I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer. Yeah, I think that's one of my favourite ones from the original one. And then, from Star Trek Voyager, I think the guy who played the Doctor on that said, I'm a doctor, not a lampshade, which was particularly funny. I'm looking forward to doing more of those.
Hi, love Judge Dredd.
Oh, there you are.
Hi, yes, sorry. Confidence, right. Love Judge Dredd. Aware of the situation, so to speak. How does that stand at the moment, and is it possible? And more importantly, what can we do to make it happen if we can do anything?
Oh, thank you. That's a great question. Yeah, well, you know, the great thing about Dredd was, you know, it's proven to be quite a popular film. Unfortunately, when it was released, it wasn't marketed the way that it should have been marketed, and there was just a fundamental lack of awareness. And so consequently, it didn't perform what it should have performed in the States, and then a lot of the international territories kind of looked at that performance and then didn't really promote it. So it was kind of hard done by in that regard. But then interestingly enough, like within its first week of DVD release in the States, it had sold over 750,000 units and just climbed. And so the company who actually had the US distribution made a lot of money on that film. And cynically you could say that they used the release of the film to market the DVD, but not my words. So the interesting thing is it's become quite an iconic cult film, and there's obviously a huge groundswell of support to make a sequel. The difficult part of that is that a lot of the way that it was originally funded was that we sold international territories, and we took that money and were able to make the film. Well, a lot of those territories got burnt in the release, so there's a reluctance from them to do the same thing. But now that there's definitely an audience there, and we know there's an audience there, you know, we think that it's possible to make a sequel for the right number and have it do really, really well. There's a whole bunch of people that are basically exploring all the avenues possible, and I know that you know, the producers of the Dredd film are very, very keen to do another one, and it's really a numbers game, and it's about, I guess, finding that that capital and moving forward. Alex Garland would love to direct the sequel and write the sequel, and he'd do a phenomenal job. I had a meeting with him in London, and we talked about what that would be. So really, it's just, you know, there's a lot of people trying. So it's a complex situation. Thank you, though. Appreciate it.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thank you. Is there any particular character or even series that you'd really love to be in or play?
Wow, you know, I mean, I feel so blessed because I've had the opportunity to be in so many. I always feel kind of like greedy if after the Lord of the Rings and, you know, Star Trek, Dredd, I feel like, you know, it's kind of greedy to say I want more. But I never really know what I want to do until I read the script or meet with the people involved with it and, you know, start making decisions about how I would like to play that character. At the moment, I'm currently shooting a film, a Disney movie here in New Zealand, which is awesome, called Pete's Dragon, and really wonderful director, great cast, including Robert Redford, who I'm looking forward to meeting and working with. And I get to work at home, which is a rarity. And any day you can work at home it's a bonus, because believe me, I spend a lot of my time in different countries and on airplanes. So yeah, I feel very blessed to be working here. Thank you. Hey guys, how are you?
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Hi. So I'm just wondering how did you manage to channel DeForest Kelly on Star Trek?
Oh, thank you. That's a great question. What's the thing about Star Trek is I was a fan of Star Trek when I was a kid, as I was a fan of like all science fiction and fantasy kind of genre television shows and movies. So I watched it growing up, and then I had recently rewatched the entire box set with my son back in like 2004 or 5, and he thought it was hilarious because he's like a kid of, you know, modern computer generated, you know, graphics and elements, and he looked at this original show and you just crack up laughing because on the original show, on the bridge of the Enterprise, instead of like plasma screens with like computer generated solar systems, they had posters. Let's go there. So he thought that was hilarious. So I kind of, like, by a process of osmosis, had really kind of absorbed the characters. I knew the fabric of the characters and their relationships to each other, and so when I heard that they were rebooting Star Trek, I was interested in it, particularly working with JJ. So I met with a bunch of folks over at Paramount Pictures. I met with JJ, and I thought that meeting went really bad because I sat down when I met him, and within a minute or 2 minutes of saying hi and doing small talk, he goes, "Well, do you have any questions?" And I said, "Yeah, what's the story, the Star Trek story that you're shooting?" He goes, "I can't tell you." So I sat there and went, "Oh, okay, well, guess I've got no questions." Thanks. And walked out, and I just thought I horribly blew that. But then, like about a month later, we got invited to test for the role of Dr. McCoy, and it was such a great experience. But I went in there, and literally halfway through the scene, I hear this laughter, and JJ's laughing. I'm thinking, what the hell's he laughing at? And because I hadn't done theatre for a long time, and I wasn't used to that live feedback. And I was like, oh my God, it's me. Oh my God, he must like what I'm doing. And I almost forgot the rest of the scene. But I didn't. And at the end of it, he sort of said, oh, well, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's Bones. That's Bones. And he goes, well, I guess you should do it again. And I went, okay, and I did it again. He's like, great. And so literally, I think I knew within about an hour and a half that we got offered the role, which was fantastic. So, and I couldn't be more thrilled to be a part of it because there's such a wonderful group of people, intelligent, smart, funny group of people. And I think that's one of the things that JJ does so exceedingly well is put groups of people who he knows are going to work well together, and to put those people together. You know, he's done it on Alias and Lost, he's done it on Star Trek, and I can't wait to see what he does with Star Wars, because he's going to knock that out of the park for sure. Thank you for your question.
I'm a big fan of Almost Human, and I just wanted to know what, if anything in particular, drew you to that script and that character, because I really enjoyed what you did with it.
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, Almost Human came to me through, obviously, my association with JJ. And I read the script and was particularly drawn to the relationship between Kennex and Dorian, and the polarity between those two characters. And so I met with Joel Wyman, the writer-creator of Fringe, who was show-running Almost Human, and he seemed to have really kind of wonderful ideas about how to deliver a show that was unique and different to the run-of-the-mill procedural shows that that were on at the time. And yeah, so those are the kind of, between JJ, Joel, and the script that and the characters, that's kind of what drew me into it. And I had an amazing time working on it. And television's quite a different beast, and they don't tell you when you sign on that you will be working 6 days a week, 17 hours a day for 6 months. While on one hand I was saddened that the show didn't get picked up beyond the 13, On the other hand, I was kind of relieved because I just didn't get to see my family for 6 months. I mean, the shooting schedule when you're the lead of a TV show like that is grueling. And we were delivering an episode every 8 days, and we had no second unit. And we were like an action sci-fi show. So normally when you shoot a television show, you have a main unit that films everything. And you have a secondary unit called the second unit, and they go in and tidy up what you don't get, or they go in and shoot the action because it's just normally too much for the main unit to complete everything. But we didn't have one, so it was a tough shoot, but it was rewarding. And the crew that I worked with on that were some of the best in the world, and I made some very dear friends in there, and I'm looking forward to working with them again. And I probably will actually, because I think we're going to be shooting Star Trek 3 up in Vancouver later on this year, and I'm sure a lot of the crew from Almost Human will be on that. So, yeah. Thank you for your question.
I take it you've seen most of the Star Trek series and movies. Do you have a favourite?
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. Yeah, interesting. You know, for a long time, my favourite Star Trek movie was The Wrath of Khan. But recently, I've really come to appreciate the motion picture. There's something about the fabric, even though it was more serious in tone, I liked it because to me it's like every Star Trek film, well actually there are a few of them, so not every Star Trek film, but a lot of them seem to have gone in the direction of having like a main antagonist, which was set up in The Wrath of Khan, having Khan. And of course I really enjoyed the spirit of the original series where it was about space exploration and the mystery of it all, and that was an element of the motion picture which I really enjoyed. It was directed by Robert Weiss. It was a slower film, but it was kind of like, you know, it was, I mean, they would never make that today. And I guess that's why I appreciate it. There's sort of a majestic element about it, you know, that I responded to. So, yeah, thank you. What's your favorite?
I think I like Into Darkness most.
Really? Fantastic. Well, I wasn't going to say one of mine.
Hey Carl, good to see you again.
How are you?
You want me to stand up? Hobbits don't stand up much, come on. Okay, alright. First question, I saw the film that you shot.
First question, you getting two?
Just one?
Just one question. I'm just jokes, you can have two.
Awesome, thank you. I saw a movie that you did earlier, Out of the Blue. My tutor, Vanessa Stacey, who tutored me up in Wellington, was also on the show, well, the movie. So I just want to know, what was your experience like working with her, and also as the killer, how was it emotionally and whatnot, portraying that character?
What was it like playing the killer?
Yes.
No, I played the cop.
Oh yes, my apologies. It was ages ago.
That's all right. Wow. That's okay, it's all good. You know, Out of the Blue was a tough movie to make. Obviously, there's a lot of people who lived in that community who didn't necessarily want that old wound picked over again. But to me, I felt like after reading the script, I felt that it was an important story to tell. You know, it spoke volumes about not only the individuals, but the strength of that community, and it was an important beat in New Zealand history. You know, I had a great time working on it, but it was hard. It was hard shooting scenes that you know that happened in real life and people lost their lives. And it was particularly sensitive. I felt very loyal to the character of Nick, who I was very blessed to meet the real police officer who I played, and I felt a responsibility to him. Ultimately, I feel that film lets him down because they changed the timeline of events. In the film, my character comes across friends of his who are victims lying on the road, either dead or bleeding out, and then goes and has the ability to shoot the gunman, but doesn't do it. That didn't happen in real life. what happened in real life is he had the opportunity to take out the gunman, but because of the police protocol at the time, he had to call it in, and he didn't have a radio, and so it was one of those sort of, it never happened in New Zealand before kind of moments. He had no idea about the fact that there were like 14 plus whatever bodies lying around, and some of them were his friends. It wasn't until subsequently that he saw those people. Some of those people who he was having a family barbecue with the night before. So to me, the difference between what happened in the movie and reality, it's very, very different. I would find it arguably, I would argue that in real life he would have made a different decision in that moment had he have known the extent of what was going on, I believe. So yeah, I'm particularly proud of that film for all its strengths and its weaknesses, and I feel it's probably the New Zealand film that I've been a part of that I'm most proud of and I love the most. And I think Robert Sarkis is a phenomenal director, and he did a really brilliant job of invoking this very moody and heavy kind of atmosphere, but then also giving the audience an insight into schizophrenia. So yeah, I thought it was a very interesting piece.
Cool, thank you. And my last question, apart from Aomir, son of Aomund, from all 6 Jackson films, what character would have you wanted to play, and what character do you think is the best, and why?
How many questions is that, folks? Well, firstly, I wouldn't have wanted to play any other character than the one I played, because everyone who I worked with is very, very close to me and a dear friend, and everybody did such extraordinary work in those movies, and I took my sons to the Hobbit films and thoroughly enjoyed them, and Sir Peter Jackson is one of the most brilliant filmmakers to come out of, well, really is to come out of New Zealand ever. Alongside Roger Donaldson and Jeff Murphy and Lee Tamahori, so it was an amazing experience working on Lord of the Rings, and I feel pretty blessed. Thank you.
Attention! Can the judges from the Trinity Treasures Cosplay Cup please make their way to the Trinity Treasures booth now?
Hi.
Hey, speaking of cosplay, how are you?
Thanks very much. You're probably going to hate me, but I've got 2 questions as well. Don't worry, I'll keep them short.
It's a 2-parter.
First question is, like everybody does like a...
No one sees you.
Like everybody in everyday life, everybody stuffs up from time to time. So I was wondering, on the set of Star Trek, what's your favourite outtake or gag? And my second question is, like the late great Sir Leonard Nimoy, was there ever an actor that you always wanted to work with, and why?
Oh, great question. Gags, bloopers. That's an interesting one. I haven't actually. I can't recall the blooper reel. I remember stuffing up a lot. There was one time where we were shooting the first Star Trek movie we made, where Chris Pine's character Kirk has the big hands, and he kind of grabs my face, and on the last take, JJ urged him to really slap it. He did it so hard, I was literally knocked about and couldn't get my lines out. They thought that was hilarious. But then I kind of got my payback, where I'm running after him with the hyperspray, and it just went from that to... and he's like, payback's a bitch. So what was the other question? What?
Like the great Sir Leonard Nimoy, was there ever an actor that you've always wanted to work with, and why?
Well, many. I would love to work with Clint Eastwood. You know, not only as an actor but a director. Paul Newman, I would love to work with him. Steve McQueen. Yet many. I mean, just the list goes on. It's Johnny Depp. Love to work with him. I could just name a slew. I'm really looking forward to later on this year going back to work with my castmates from Star Trek. We're going to make Star Trek 3 shooting in Vancouver, I believe. So that's what I'm most looking forward to. And next, I think this week coming up, I get to meet and work with Mr. Robert Redford, which I'm looking forward to. He's a bit of an icon. Yeah, thank you for your question.
Hi, sorry, I've only just got one question.
That's all right, mate.
That's okay.
You got one question, just one. I'm just going to. This guy has got the coolest Star Wars blaster. Look at that. Wow, that is awesome. Thank you. So kind of you. There you go. How can I help you? What's your question?
I was just wondering, you've played quite a range of characters on sort of the spectrum of morality, I suppose, of how. I mean, is there any particular that you enjoy in particular or would like to explore more if you can?
Well, I'd love to make another Dredd. I had a great time working on that, and I was particularly proud of it. The entire experience was such a wonderful collaborative experience. First of all, there was a character who, you know, I grew up with. I didn't read many graphic novels, but Dredd was one of them that I did read, and Frank McMillan's Dark Knight series. It was literally just those two. And so the experience of working on Dredd for me was like, I got to sit down with the writer, and a lot of actors go and try and get more lines and more dialogue, but for me it was a process of saying less. And so I'd sit down with him, and we'd be going through the scene by scene, and I'd be cutting lines out, and he sort of looked at me at one point, and he's the writer, and he sort of smiles, and I was like, what? And he goes, well, you know, I showed this draft to John Wagner, the creator of Dredd, and John was like, this is a great script, Alex, really, you know, I like it a lot. You know, one of my main notes is Dredd says less. and so he was particularly amused that I was, even after he'd cut out a chunk of dialogue, I was reducing it even further. So it was just such a brilliant experience, and I would, you know, such a challenge. I mean, how do you convey an emotion like hope or fear or anxiety when you only got that much of your face to work with and your whole body? But it was a challenging experience, and had a great time working with Olivia and Alex. I'd love to do that again. Thank you.
Hi.
Yellow.
Oh, I know. I lost a bet, so anyway. Thank you for making me actually like Star Trek. I know a lot of people are going to be upset, but thank you for being a part of that, because it's awesome. And back in the day of Xena, Warrior Princess, and Hercules, huge fan. Did you ever think back then working, you would end up where you are now? Like, could you even consider...
In Christchurch?
Yeah. Could you even consider the concept of playing Dredd, or that... I mean, technology itself's come so far in filmmaking, as opposed to rolling around the dirt with vines and...
Yeah, you know, the interesting thing about Hercules and Xena, like many of the crew that were on that went on to work on Lord of the Rings. Nyla Dickinson was our wardrobe designer for Xena, and went and won an Oscar for her work on Lord of the Rings. And you know, many of the camera department, the grips. I first worked with with Weta Boys, with Richard Taylor. I first met them on Xena. And so really in that regard, it was a fantastic kind of training ground for the New Zealand industry, because it was a show that had a production value. And when I say talk about production value, I mean an aesthetic. We shot it on film, and it had a look that was of a quality that was higher than local productions. And so it was just natural kind of progression to then sort of I guess upgrade into something like Lord of the Rings. So it was a very, very important and valuable production for the New Zealand industry. As to your question, did I ever hope or dream? Yeah, absolutely. You know, when I first started started out in this, you know, it was my goal and desire to work internationally. And Lord of the Rings came out in, well, my one came out in 2001 or 2002, I believe. My first trip to the States, scouting out, you know, agents and taking meetings and stuff, was in 1996. So way before my involvement with that, I was already looking at the Los Angeles as, you know, because a lot of New Zealand actors would make the jump over to Australia and kill a few years, you know, there, and then perhaps go to LA or not, or London. But to me, it was just like, I'm just going to go straight for the jugular. Because, and that's, you know, what I like about Los Angeles, apart from the fact that I've got a lot of great friends there, is that it's a very collaborative, artistic kind of community. And it excites me that every day that I can get up and go and actually be proactive about meeting people, about working on potential projects, and that's hard to do in this country. It's just the industry's so much smaller here, and there's only a finite amount of films that get made. So for me, it was kind of an inevitability. It's like, well, I either stay in New Zealand and have to supplement my income, or you know, work internationally. So that's what I did. Thank you for your question.
Hi Karl, I have one question, and that's if you have any special tricks that you use to be successful at auditions.
At auditions?
Yep, to get the role.
I like to lie. Say you can do it. By the time you can't, by the time they find out you can't, it's too late. And you probably learned how to do what you've lied that you said that you could do. So that's the best piece of advice I could give. No, just jokes. No, seriously, lie. No. Yeah, that is a good question. Look, you know, I find that the more that you invest in yourself, the more that you invest in your craft, the better prepared you're going to be. And that's the best thing you can do, is be prepared. And I've said this many times, but, you know, I always think about a boxer. A boxer just doesn't come out of the corner of his ring and that's the first punch that he's thrown. He's trained. He's trained for months and months and for that one night. And, you know, I'm kind of the same opinion, you know. So when I'm not working, I like to invest in myself, invest in my craft, and you know, so that when I do have that opportunity, that I'm going to be ready for it. So, yeah, thank you for your question. And lie. Hey, sweetheart, how are you?
What do you love about being an actor?
I like the free lunch. They give you free lunch on set, and sometimes it's really good, and free desserts too. I like the travel. I've been blessed to have worked in many different countries. One of my favorites actually was South Africa, which was kind of ironic because I'd never really met any South Africans living here in New Zealand who I particularly connected with. And I often wondered if that was because they didn't like living in South Africa post-apartheid, so we got all those kinds here. But having gone to South Africa and worked there, I met so many wonderful people, and I got to take my family on safari, and you know, see the big animals, and all of that happened because of my job, and I think that's part of my favorite thing, and meeting people. I'm continually getting to meet and work with really fascinating, interesting people, and I feel very blessed to have those people in my life. And yeah, I think those are the things I like the best about it. Thank you for your question. That's a great question. Let's give her a round of applause. Good question.
That was my daughter.
Hey.
Gotta love her, mate. Anyway, what I was going to ask is my son in the green Hornet outfit. He was the one who asked the question, what's Chris Pine like to work with? He's a bit of a naughty boy over here a little while ago doing some movie. I wonder what he's like.
He was actually. He got arrested for a DUI.
Yeah.
So I texted him, "Nice one, Chris Pint." That's going to be my name from now. Hey, Pint. He can still drive in America though.
Yeah. And the second thing that I was going to ask is, it's big shoes to fill, Dr. McCoy, judging from the original series. But I'm guessing you've probably by now rubbed shoulders a lot with the old crew.
I love rubbing shoulders.
With the old crew, you know, the original series crew. Well, the ones that are alive apart from, well, them and Spock and whatever. How did they feel about your portrayal of Bones?
Well, that's a great question, actually. I'll tell you a little story that was one of the most touching things that happened to me. Hey, by the way, are you dressed up like from the detective from the first Batman movie?
Damn good idea.
Yeah, that's what I thought. You know the guy.
Yeah. I was told by somebody when I put my scarf around my neck I looked like a slave owner.
Rorschach?
Something like that.
Right. Okay, good. Yeah, look, okay, this is what happened. I was going to a charity event, William Shatner's charity event, and I was walking into it, and behind me was Leonard Nimoy and his wife, and his wife says, "Hey, Karl," and I turn around, and she goes, "Come here, come here." And so we're walking along together into this event, and she goes, "I just want you to know that when Leonard was watching you at the premiere the other night on the screen, that he was moved to tears." And that blew me away, because, and I don't necessarily believe it was because of the performance of what I was doing, but I think there was obviously enough elements and similarity to what I was doing that reminded him of his dear friend, that it moved him to tears. And that was like, doesn't get any better than that. You know, that to me that's how I knew that I sort of hit the mark in that movie. And I feel so blessed to have gotten to work with and got to know him a little bit. And he was such a lovely, warm-hearted, smart, funny, dry funny man, and I feel richer for having known him. But the funny thing, actually, watching the very first day that he came on set on the original Star Trek movie that we shot, the Star Trek movie that JJ shot, and first time he had donned the ears in 17 years, and he does the first take, and JJ's over the monitor and he's watching the take. And then the take finishes, and then he goes up and he goes to give Leonard Nimoy direction, and he literally did this. He looks up at Leonard Nimoy. Yeah, exactly. I saw him get halfway over there and suddenly realized, oh my God, I'm going to go and give Spock direction. How can I give direction to the guy who knows more about this character than anything? And because I asked him about it, and he said that's exactly what had happened. It's the funniest thing. We were all very, very saddened, and we feel a great loss. I'm speaking for the cast, my castmates, and for JJ and those guys. That he was such a wonderful man, and our lives are so much richer for having worked with and getting to know him.
We've probably got time for one more question. So no pressure.
Frozen? Yeah? Frozen. Is it cold in here? No, you're a cosplayer. Is it Frozen?
No, it's Princess Kenny from South Park.
From what?
South Park.
South Park. I was so close.
Recently I came into possession of a movie from the year 2000 called The Price of Milk. Very strange movie. What was it like working on that one?
Yeah, Price of Milk. It was a great film to work on, actually. We had no script for that. Well, the director would actually write the script during the week, and then we would turn up on like a Thursday or a Friday and shoot till Sunday. And we would get the pages on the day. And that's not normally how I like to work. What I did at that time, like to really sort of think about what I was doing, and so to kind of contract that process was a challenge for me, but it was valuable because it taught me to work on my feet, to think on my feet. That was the film that Peter Jackson saw, and based on that offered me the role of Éomer in Lord of the Rings, because Peter was good friends with Harry Sinclair, the director, and Harry took a rough cut of The Price of Milk down to show Peter. So it was wonderful for me in that regard. But yeah, it was a great experience. I had to swim naked in a vat of milk. I couldn't eat ice cream or any milk products for a long time. And I smelt really badly after that too. Milk. I wouldn't recommend swimming in it or doing anything else in it, for that matter. But yeah, I mean, some of the humour in that I think was in line with some of the Flight of the Conchords, kind of that dry humour, and it's a very similar kind of vein. And I love those guys, what they've accomplished. Funnily enough, to tell you a story, I was in Los Angeles once, walking into a doctor's office to get a medical for a film that I was doing, and I came out and I hear this, "Hey Karl," and I turn around, there's these two guys, and then they said, "Oh yeah, we're in LA, we're sort of pitching a TV show," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, good for you," yeah. And they're like, "Yeah, you know, you guys, you're doing really well, and we want to, you know, do what you're doing." And I'm thinking, yeah, right, good one. Good luck, guys. Jermaine Clement, Brett McKenzie, Fly the Conchords. Hey, I think that's all we got time for. I want to thank you very much. You've been a wonderful audience. And thank you again for having me in this great city of yours. Thank you. Thank you very much.